now I have a Panasonic 4-head VCR. This one's a model PVV4522K. Made in Indonesia. I believe this is the Z chassis. This is one of the last VCRs that Panasonic made. And this is the last piece of equipment that I bought at Radio Shack, just before Radio Shack disappeared in Canada. This unit is functional. There's nothing wrong with the unit. I'm just going to go through the operation of this thing to show you guys what makes this unit up. It's a very, very cheap design. Everything's plastic. Very poorly made machine, but this is the machine that I use on a daily basis, or almost daily basis, for doing tape transfers. Nothing's broken on it yet, but we're going to go through it does have some issues when loading some tapes, and it's a known issue on these units. The plastic is very weak on the cassette housing on these units, and a lot of times tapes won't load as they should. So we'll just go through the operation of this unit here, and maybe do a little disassembly to see how it works. Tape goes in, loads down. Okay, on this one here you've got a P1 guide over here, which is your tape back tension arm. Your P2 guide, your P3 guide. This one doesn't have a P4 or P5, it has a P4 guide over here. So this is a very simple mechanism. It's I think it's a 3-motor design. Let's take the chassis apart and just take a look at what makes this thing work. So I shut off the power. Everything's all one board on this, as you can see. There's no separate power supply. Everything is just, it is what it is. It was a very inexpensive, cheap machine. I think I paid, I don't know, about 80 bucks for this thing, something like that. Probably just broke the front of it. It was very inexpensive. I needed an extra hi-fi machine, and this was the cheapest one I could find. The mechanism's held in place by, I believe it's 4 screws. There's 2 screws down in here and 2 more at the back. And I'm not even sure if things unplug on this, but we have to pull a cassette basket forward a bit to get to the screws on the bottom of the chassis. And there's 2 more at the back here. And I believe the mechanism now will lift up from the main board. But there's no plugs or anything on this. We actually have to lift the main board out. So we got to take out another couple screws on here, because again, this unit was not designed to be serviced. It was simple as that. This was the first of the, or the last of the VCRs I think that Panasonic made or put their name on, and they should never have put their name on this thing. I mean, it's just, that's actually going to a metal plate. So you got to remove that screw as well, because that screw goes through this metal plate. It's a grounding screw, and that's what provides the ground to the back. It actually grounds through this, and then the top cover screws in, so that grounds the top cover. Not that it really does any good, because there's no ground shield on the bottom of the board anywhere. We're just grounding the top cover. Okay, now that this unit is separated out of its chassis, I believe we can probably lift up the circuit board, or lift up the mechanism off of the board. and just see how this thing works. Or can we? Now we got to take out another shield cover here because this wire going to the audio control head is held in place with this cover. So we have to take out this other screw here. Now we have probably freed up enough that we can tip the unit up like that. Okay. So mode switches here. It's keyed, so it only goes in one way. So to clean the mode switch on this one here, you can just pop it open, I believe. Yes, it is keyed. There is a little key mark on here, so we know which way it goes. Pop it open with fingernails. Oh, this one needs to be cleaned. I'll clean it while I've got it apart. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. I haven't had any problems with this unit yet, but then I haven't used this unit for a few months. This is a unit that I do use when I'm transferring tapes, when I get a VHS tape, but again, I haven't used it for a bit. So it's been sitting, and as you can see, the contacts are dirty. Okay, I've got some cotton tip swabs here. We'll just wipe out the old dried lubricant that's getting pretty dirty, and we'll put some cleaner in there. We'll just wipe the contacts off, and we'll just put some Neutral onto the switch. Like that. And we'll just spin it around a few times. Let's explain some of the sensors on here. This is our main LED for the tape end sensors, and here are the two tape end sensors, there and there. We also have two optical rotation sensors for the supply reel and the take-up reel. So if these sensors were to go bad, either of these two, especially this one here, the tape is going to go into play for a few seconds and then stop. The same thing would happen if the reel stopped turning. And these are also used to calculate out how much tape remains on it. Very, very simple design on this unit here. As you can see, the unit itself is basically 3 chips. 4 chips, but three main chips. Here, hi-fi circuit, audio circuit, video circuit, and control circuit. It's a 3-motor system, a drum motor, which the drum motor is on the top side of the drum. So this is just the rotary transformer for the video. And we've got a capstan motor, which also drives the reels, and a loading motor, which drives this main cam gear, which does everything. Everything's done with one slide cam. I'm not going to tear this thing down to pieces because there's no need to. There's nothing wrong with this one. I just wanted to clean up the mode switch, which I've done on here. Capstan motor is the only thing that plugs in. There's a connector here for the capstan motor. And other than that, I haven't had any problems with this unit, other than I knew that the mode switch was probably starting to give me trouble, because there's times where I go to load a tape and I put the tape in and I'd kick the tape back out, and I'd do that about 10 times and it would finally take the tape. So I kind of had a feeling that that might be where the problem is, and after seeing the contact condition of that, I'm pretty sure that that's the only problem we've got on this thing. I'll show you guys the timing marks on here for the mechanism when it's timed. Okay, there are little marks on the mechanism here that point to various positions, stop, where the gear is in the various positions. There are little marks here for the different modes when it's loaded. If we fake a tape going in by pushing the cassette housing in, so it can drop. we can actually put this thing through its paces. As you can see, it's a very simple design. Not really much that can go wrong with it other than plastic parts breaking. And that brings another point. These guide blocks, for example, these are all plastic, so if one of these breaks, you're SOL, because you're never going to find parts for something like this. I don't think parts were available for this thing when it was a current machine, never mind a machine that's 13 years old. And this was made about the year that I got out of the electronics business. In fact, I bought this the year after I left the electronics business in 2003, and I would have probably bought this unit in 2003. That would have been the reason I bought this at Radio Shack, was because the dealer that I worked for, where I could buy it wholesale before, I had left that organization, so I couldn't buy cheap wholesale product anymore. I had to actually go and buy my first VCR at retail, and this was it. But as you can see, it's pretty simple. Loading motor on the top through this gear here, rotates the cam gear. Cam gear operates everything. As the cam gear rotates, it moves the main cam. The main cam operates the guides, and the main cam also operates through another lever on the top side. It operates the loading mechanism, which is through this spring here. So we can now put the mechanism back onto the circuit board so that I can start to reassemble this thing. I want to make sure that my timing is correct. Yes, I've got the timing marks lined up here. There's a keyway that's facing this way, and the switch keyway is facing down, so I know that I'm correct. And I just have to line up the holes that the sensors have to go through, and that should put the unit back together. The unit should even operate as it is now. I'm not going to fire it up until I put it back in its case, but the unit is functional at this point. The cam gear on the top also is, where is the bottom of it? It also drives this gear here. Actually, this is an intermediate gear. The loading motor drives through the worm gear, drives this intermediate gear, which turns the pinch roller, raised lower cam, tower gear as you call it, or the tower cam, which is what raises and lowers the pinch roller. There's another little idler gear here, and then that turns a shaft which turns the main cam below. These are all held in place with non-removable washers. So in other words, once you remove them, you won't get them back on. They go on once, as you can see. Get a shot of it here. These washers are designed, they're not a cut washer or anything, they're just a one-time washer with teeth, and when they're pressed on at the factory here, these are designed to never come off, and there's a good chance that trying to take them off, you're going to break the nylon post, and then the gear is shot. And that's one of the reasons I'm not going to take this mechanism down to the bare parts to show you how to time it, because just due to the cheapness of this unit here, there's a very good chance that if I take it down to that point, it's not going to go back together and work. And since this was a working machine, I want to keep it that way. I'll put the unit upside down so I can put the bottom case back on it. Put the ground screw back in from the bottom here. Couple more screws to hold the mechanism in place. Again, we have to press the two little tape releases on here to allow the mechanism to move in, so that I can replace the last two screws to hold the chassis in place. now I can power it up and it should reset, which it does. We'll plug it into the monitor and verify that it works. Okay, loads, threads up, goes into play, and we have color bars. It's working. We'll take the tape out now. Gotta find which button does what over here. Stop, eject. There we go. There we go. Mode switch is clean. Put the front cover back on it. Gotta be sure I lift the front door up over top of this little catch. Otherwise it won't open the door to eject the tape. There we go. There. All I did was I just pulled down a bit on these springs. That's the Panasonic Z chassis. That's the one that came with that odd looking remote designed to stand up. Now for those of you wondering, where do you hook your scope up for adjusting your tape path alignment? On the left side of the drum here, there's test points 3002 and test point 4207, which are right down here on the board. One of them is the RF for the video head, which would be that one there, which is the RF for the video head, and the other one here, that one is the RF for the hi-fi audio head. So as you can see, this machine, it's just a smidge out. I haven't hooked up my trigger point, I'm just running it on single scope, so it is going to drift like this. If I just tweak my guide slightly here, it's going to be the exit side guide. I can tell just from the side that's down, looks like the exit side. Just tweak my guide slightly. My hi-fi cuts back in. Look at the video side of it here. It's going to be relatively flat. I'll see if I can find the test point for this, put the trigger on. Well, look what just happened. I just had a head clog up there and just cleared itself, but our trigger point is over here, test point 6205. That's where you trigger your scope from. You put on one of these two over here. This is, now we're looking at the video waveform, and by adjusting the tape path guides here, we can adjust for maximum amplitude without all kinds of, see, you want to maximize it right here, want it to be flat, and that's the exit side, and this is the entry side here that I'm adjusting. And you want it to be flat, just like that. That's the video, and then the other one to the back here, that's the audio hi-fi for the audio head. So that's your test points. I'll show you a close up here. So here are your video test points. This one here, that one's the RF for the video head. That one's the RF for the audio hi-fi heads. And you trigger your scope way back there on test point, looks like 6205. This one in the back corner. Test point 6205. That's your trigger. And if I turn on the second channel of my scope, you'll see it's got a pulse on it. See? That horrible noise you're hearing right there is sugar or something that got onto the tape, and I've now contaminated my heads. This tape went through a machine that had something spilt on it, and it contaminated the tape, and at that point it sticks. I just clogged my heads up. You can just hear it screeching. If we look at the picture, I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is the rolling shutter on this thing, but that's caused by something sticky. That tape went into a machine that someone had put a juice soaked tape on it, and it got apple juice or pop or something residue, and I put my tape into a machine, and now I've contaminated my heads. So now I have to clean it off. Just gonna put my thumbnail against the drum here above the head and just try to get that residue that's on there off. And of course there's some more. I should record myself a new color bar tape. That's what I should do. Okay, it's clear. As you can see, my bars are good now. But that's what happened with that tape. And I know that there's that on that tape because it's happened a few times where I've run this tape and it just stops. That's what happens when people, you know, you probably see some of the remnants on here. I got to clean this again, but I got most of it off. It's left the residue. Is it residue that's been left there? That residue was picked up off the tape. So now I have to clean this gun job. The problem when it's sugar based is that alcohol won't clean it. You gotta use water. I'm gonna just put some alcohol on here, see if it'll try and clean some of that off. Try and get some of that crud off there. Now we'll get some paper and clean it. Some paper. Yeah, we got a fair bit off there. And clean the lower drum again. Lower drum. When you clean the lower drum portion, be sure you rotate the heads away so that the head chips don't get in contact with that, or it's going to kill it. It's going to break them. I let that dry for a few seconds. We'll make sure that it plays back. We'll clean the audio head as well. See, this machine is the machine I use for when I have customer tapes to transfer to DVD. I use this machine for it. I have a couple of nice Super VHS machines that I'm using for my own tapes that I'm transferring for myself, but I won't put a client's tape into one of my nice old good Super VHS machines that I'm trying to preserve. I use this for the unknown tapes because they're in various states of damage or dirt. You never know, right? Especially people that rented a lot of movies. Back to this stupid. These mechanisms are flaky. It only does it on the short load tapes. The 120 minute tapes, it's fine, but on these machines, if you get a short tape like a 15 or a 30, the tape is light and there's not enough weight to it to actually drop down, and the motor is not very strong, so that's a known issue on these machines. Anyway, heads are clean, mode encoder switch is clean. Now you've seen the inside guts of one of these pieces of junk, and they work, but they are, or they were, one of the lower quality of machines that I saw come out from Panasonic. And you'll know these ones. They're all made in Indonesia. Prior to that, Panasonic made all their machines in Japan. Thanks for watching.